We are all waiting for whether it's the NCAA or somebody else to get a handle on NIL and really reel this in, make it clear and understandable for everyone. And meanwhile, we are having for the first time some investigations that are being wielded by the NCAA against a few schools concerning NIL. So I find this a bit disconcerting, but also amusing at the same time that we are disciplining while we're still trying to figure out what it all means and what it should be. So I have sent out the bat signal, and here's Tony Siracusa from Last Word on College Football to help us break it down. Tony, how you doing tonight?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing all right. Even with the rainy skies of Charlotte, North Carolina, I saw the bat signal up there. So
and I'm glad of it.
Here I am. It is confusing. It's look, when NIL started and the NCAA decided to sit out, any sort of jurisdictional issues because they were so tired of being taken to court every time they tried to do something. You had, I think we're up to 32 or 33 states that created their own NIL legislation. So it was kind of like the wild, wild west of you could do this in this state, but not that state. And, some similarities. And now with new NCAA president Charlie Baker, we're starting to see some actual investigations, which as you put it, I think so very well. It's confusing. It's slightly humorous. And somehow I don't think this is anywhere near the end of the subject.
So I find some good, some positive in that there is action being taken, because for a while it was viewed as, well, the NCAA doesn't want to get sued. They want to stay out of it. They're not going to take action on this. And because it's very difficult to get a hold on, that they don't want to go to court and act on something that they don't have a grasp of, just like the rest of us. Now, all of us knowing that there is money being paid to the players, and in a sense above board with all the collectives that are doing what they're doing to funnel the money and so forth. But some of it seems a bit outside of the realm of what the intent of NIL was supposed to be. And then when we hear that the first action taken against a school with all this money flying here and there involves an offensive line coach driving a prospective student athlete to meet with an agent, and then also giving him a ride and his family, that's what they pinpoint to take action against?
Well, and I'm going to take it one step further. It was Florida State. As if Florida State hasn't been the college football piñata for the last 2.5 months already, it was Florida State. Look, there's something that does exist in most of the state legislative outputs on NIL, and that is that there must be a line, or a brick wall, even better, between the school and the collective. All right, the school cannot act on behalf of the collective. The collective must do its fundraising separate from anything having to do with the school. So Florida State and its assistant coach driving someone who was not even yet one of their players, because, and let's back up for 10 seconds, most of the state laws also include you may not use NIL to induce a player to go to your school. Now, that gets abused constantly, not quite as much as it does to get players in and out of the portal, but it gets abused routinely. But this was such low-hanging fruit. This was so easy because the prospect and his family are the ones who turned Florida State in. They're the ones who were like, when he got questioned, he said, yeah, I met with a guy who represents the collective, and the offensive line coach drove me there. Whoa, hang on. We're going to need an official's review of this play. It violates the state rules. It violates the NCAA rules. You know, if you want to put on the tinfoil hat and go conspiracy theory, it was Florida State, and the ACC and the NCAA have a bone to pick with Florida State right now because of the lawsuits filed back and forth between Florida State and the ACC. The state attorney general trying to get information from the College Football Playoff Committee and the NCAA and ESPN about how Florida State got left out. It's one big game of Jenga. And this was the one peg that allowed a little bit of the tower to collapse because it was so easy. I think that there's also, because it was easy, and Charlie Baker went after this because he has put together a new NIL resolution, which has a little bit of legs. I think it's easy. We have all sat here and dismissed the NCAA for years because they don't do anything. They don't punish the right people, or their investigations take so long. But part of his proposal, which has the backing of several school administrators already, is to put NIL in the hands of the school. Basically, it would wipe out the collectives because, as you pointed out, the collectives are doing whatever they do, but that was never the intention of NIL. It was never this is not what Ed O'Bannon went and fought all those years for and took it all the way to the Supreme Court. That was, you have a sponsor, he wants this quarterback, maybe he's going to go to the auto dealership, sign autographs, do a commercial, whatever. It was deliverables from the athlete to the sponsor in exchange for money. That was NIL. The collectives, and I know people cringe, and I've said this on your show before, the collectives are legalized money laundering. They gather money. It's non-directed money, because when you donate to the collective, you're not saying, hey, I want to give this to the running back, I want to make sure he gets it. You're just giving to the collective, and they dole out the money however they see fit, whether it's for freshman prospects, whether it's to get new guys out of the portal, whether it's to keep your own players by giving them more money so they don't go in the portal. It's pay for play, which was never the intention of NIL. Charlie Baker would like to see the collectives go away. And so his plan, which still needs a lot of work, a lot of smoothing out, it's not ready for prime time, but he's working with conference commissioners, and he's working with presidents and chancellors and athletic directors at universities, would be for the school to set up a trust fund that is the NIL. Money goes directly into that trust fund. You have to have an outside third party do the allocations, the math, the accounting, all of those things. And therefore, you don't need the collectives. This was a little too easy, but it also fit into his narrative. See? Collective, meeting with someone they're not supposed to meet with, right? And so it was kind of easy. So Florida State got 2 years probation. They have a loss of scholarships. They have a loss, and it's not a significant amount. I think the total, it was a percentage of what they currently have. So I think in total, it wound up being 7 scholarships over 2 years. It was a loss of in-person recruiting hours that you're allowed to do. And it was an extended blackout period. You know, we have those periods through the year where coaches aren't allowed to talk to prospects. Theirs has been extended by about another 3 weeks. But the biggest thing, and they got hit with a financial fine. But the biggest thing is it was kind of the first shot across the bow of anyone. Like you said early on, this was the first time, excuse me, that we've seen someone get hit like this. Now we also see an investigation into Florida, University of Florida, and with their collective and what happened with Jaden Rashada, and whether he was really offered 11 million, which I'm going to just tell you he wasn't. There is no offer for 11. When I think if, you know, we learn a lesson out of this, besides don't cheat, it would be The stuff you see on social media about the dollar figures, is hogwash. It's garbage. Unless someone is ready to show a contract with that dollar figure on there, just assume it's hogwash. The NIL agents and attorneys have a vested interest in exaggerating it because it makes them look better. The schools have a vested interest in letting that misinformation get out there because it makes them look like big spenders. The players have a vested interest in it because it makes it look like, hey, look how much I'm worth. And almost every time it's garbage. But now there is a full-blown investigation into the University of Florida also and its relationship with its collective.
So, Tony, I'm asked almost on a daily basis by somebody, what would you do to clean up NIL? What would you do to clean up the transfer portal? I'm not even going to make it that difficult on you because I answer that question and I think I take a pretty measured, reasonable approach, but I do admit some of this may not fly. It may be a little bit too Pollyanna to a certain extent. What would be a positive first step? Just a first step. What could happen? What move could be made that you would think, okay, we're on the right path? This was a good step to take at this point.
I'm going to answer with a bit of a preface to this because it matters to the bottom line. We all need to remember the NCAA does not enjoy antitrust exemptions, which is why they get sued every time they try and do something, because none of it was brought about by collective bargaining, any sort of group effort. It was the NCAA saying, these are the rules. Now, the NCAA has a case in that membership of the NCAA is voluntary. These schools are not obligated to belong. They're not going to survive athletically without it. But point being, for instance, one of the things I would like to see happen with the transfer portal is it going back to you get the one free transfer. After that, you got to sit out a year because there's too much in and out. But we saw what happened in early December. The NCAA made that change and they were immediately sued by a couple of basketball players in West Virginia with a federal court saying, you can't do that. You can't impose that limit. Ironically enough, because it inhibits their ability, if they have to sit out, it inhibits their ability to make NIL money, which you don't have the ability to stop them from doing. So the NCAA doesn't have a lot of ammunition in its guns. There has to be a way to get through the portal. And I think part of it is get rid of the waiver system. Don't offer waivers to anybody. That's where they keep getting in trouble. Well, you got waivers for these guys, or why not this guy? And the courts have found that they do this with no real consistency. That's fine. Then just get out of the waiver business. Nobody gets a waiver. You're still going to be sued, but you have a better chance of winning that lawsuit. With regards to NIL, I think if you can get the cooperation of the conferences to undo the collectives, then I think you've made huge progress. Are schools going to dip into the trust fund illegally and move some? Yes, of course they are. I hate to break it to everybody. Schools have been cheating for 70 years, and getting the players they wanted and jobs, paying them for jobs that didn't really exist. And, watching the sprinklers come on the football field and here's a couple $100 for you, that kind of stuff. So, but I think if we can find a way to minimize the impact of the collectives, we've made huge, huge progress. I am all in favor of NIL. You have the rights to your name, image, and likeness if someone wants to use them. No one in a million years is going to want to use mine, but I own those rights. The athletes should own their rights also, but in the way that it was intended, going back to the O'Bannon lawsuit.
Tony Siracusa, last word on college football. There you see the reference points right there on X, and also last word collegefootball.com. Tony, Always appreciate you stopping by, clarifying things, and in a world that's nearly impossible to clarify, but you certainly got us much closer.
I do my best. It's not easy, but I do my best.